Good day everyone, welcome to my video. My name is Saloni Kayomo and I'm here to continue discussing the topic Introduction to Parasitology in Microbiology. From the first discussant, Ms. Angelos Campos, she discussed and defined parasitology, parasite, parasitologists, branches of parasitology, parasitism, and the types of or classification of parasite based on location, the ectoparasite and endoparasite. As a continuation to the overview discussion of the topic Introduction to Parasitology, let me start discussing now for more deeper knowledge. For a little recap from Ms. Angelos Campos' video, remember that parasite is the living organism which receive nourishment and shelter from another organism where it lives. We can see in the pictures shown in first pic, the plant leaf is the organism that hosts the parasite. The red one is the parasite which are receiving nourishment and shelter from the plant leaves. Second pic is the most common parasite seen by the human naked eye. Lice is nourishing itself by sucking blood from human head hairs. Third one is the poor puppy with a parasite on its skin. That parasite is the mangoworms. And the fourth one is the kid with schistosomiasis because there is a healthy parasite which is the worms inside his stomach living and eating nourishment that's supposed to be distributed to the kid's vital body parts. Each parasite has two names, genus that start from the uppercase letter and species that starts with a lowercase letter. A parasite is named based on their discoveries, geographical area, and the host. An example of parasite scientific name are Entamoeba histolytica, Giardia duodenalis, Ascaris lumbricoides, and many more. And additional also, if a parasite causes a disease, it is called parasitosis or parastasis. Parasitology is the study of parasite or the study of the interaction between parasite and their host. One of the branches of parasitology that study the parasites that infect and cause disease to us human beings is medical parasitology or human parasitology. So, there is a term used to describe a relationship or interaction between two dissimilar organisms. This term is called symbiosis, and it has three types that depends whether either or both organisms benefit from each other. The three main types are the mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. Mutualism is a mutualistic relationship where both species benefit from the relationship. This might look like providing a home, giving food, or offering protection. In the picture below, a hummingbird is drinking flower nectar. In return, the flower gets to have its pollen spread around by the hummingbird. These two organisms benefit from each other. This is a positive relationship. Commensalism. Commensalism, this is when one organism might not even know or care that another organism is benefiting from them. This is a positive association. An example of commensalism is barnacles and a whale relationship. Barnacles get a shelter by attaching on the whale's body without generally harming or benefiting the whale. Parasitism. Parasitism is the type of relationship between organisms that focuses to our main overview lesson in this video. Parasitism is a parasitic relationship which one organism, the parasite, lives on or in the body of the host. Parasitism is one relationship between two organisms in which one of them benefits and the other species is harmed. So, this is a red flag and toxic relationship. A common example of parasitism is a tick in the cat's hair. The tick sucks blood in the cat while benefiting itself while the cat gets a skin infection. In that way, the ticks benefits while they are harming the cat in a serious way. In parasitism and the study of parasitology, since parasite lives in another organism and depends on the host for their survival, without a host, a parasite cannot live, grow, and multiply. So, what is a host? A parasite host. A host is an organism which harbors the parasite. A host is an organism which provides nourishment and shelter to the parasites. There are 5 major types of hosts depending upon their role in the life cycle of the parasites: definitive host, intermediate host, accidental host, reservoir host, and paratenic or transport host. Definitive or primary host. Definitive host is also known as primary host. It is the type of host which harbors the adult parasites or where the parasite replicates sexually. The definitive host can be a mammalian host on other living hosts. Examples include sheep for Fasciola gigantica, a dog for Echinococcus granulus, and a female Anopheles mosquito for Plasmodium. In the majority of human parasitic infections, man is the definitive host. But when a definitive host like mosquito bites a human skin and by passing the disease to human, man will be the intermediate host of the malaria. Intermediate or secondary host refers to the host which harbors the larval stage of a parasite or in which the parasite undergoes a sexual multiplication. For example, humans are the intermediate host for Plasmodium or malarial parasites. When a man gets bitten by a definitive host, which is mosquito, the man becomes an intermediate host because the malaria disease is now passed to the man. Intermediate hosts are mandatory for the completion of the life cycle for some parasites. Some parasites require 2 intermediate hosts to complete their different larval stages. These are known as the first and second intermediate hosts, respectively. For example given, amphibian snails are the first intermediate host and aquatic plants are the second intermediate host for Fasciola hepatica. Reservoir host. It is a host which harbors the parasites, possibly grow and multiply and serve as an important source of infection to other susceptible hosts. For example given, a dog is the reservoir host for cystic echinococcus. Reservoir hosts do not get the disease carried by the pathogen or it is asymptomatic and non-lethal, meaning it is an organism host that harbors a pathogen but suffers no ill effects because it is asymptomatic. It is also known as temporary host, and reservoir hosts are not essential for the parasite to complete its life cycle. A dog as a reservoir host for parasite cystic echinococcus gets the infection from eating rodents and birds that before ingesting oocysts of the ground. Paratenic or storage hosts. A paratenic host serves as a temporary refuge and vehicle for reaching an obligatory host, usually the definitive host. A paratenic harbors the sexually immature parasite, but it cannot develop further in these hosts. If a suitable definitive host ingests the paratenic host, or a part of it containing the infective stage, the parasite can grow to maturity, otherwise it remains stored in the host itself. For example, lizards act as a paratenic host for Spirocera lupi in dogs. The role of such a host is to fill up an ecological between the intermediate host and the definitive hosts. Remember that paratenic is the storage room or the vehicle that reached the obligatory host for this parasite. It can be also called as other definitive. The larval stage parasite survives here but not develop further. Incidental or accidental hosts. A host organism that shelters the parasite, but since it can progress the life cycle development, it is dead end for it. For example, humans are dead end hosts for the Japanese encephalitis virus or GAV, whose life cycle is normally between colicine mosquitoes and birds. People can become infected, but the level of virus in their blood does not become high enough to pass on the infection to mosquitoes that bite them. Accidental or incidental hosts are wrong host species for the parasites. It is when a parasite enters or attaches to the host different from the normal one. Accidental parasitism puts both host and parasite into environmental condition to which neither is well adapted. It is not surprising that the result may be serious harm to either or both participants. Another example of accidental hosts is heartworms in humans that are supposed for dogs. A parasite has divided into two main classes, microparasite and macroparasites. Microparasite is small, unicellular like protozoa. Macroparasite is large, multicellular like helminths or metazoa. Protozoa are eukaryotic and unicellular that belongs to kingdom Protista. Helminths are eukaryotic and multicellular belong to kingdom Animalia. Protozoa is further classified into Sarcodina, Mastigophora, Sporozoa, and Ciliata. Metazoa or helminths is further classified into flatworms or roundworms. Flatworms can be subdivided into class, like into trematodes and cystoda. Classification of parasite based on habitat: obligate parasite, facultative parasite, accidental parasite, and aberrant parasites. Obligate parasites. An obligate parasite or holoparasite is a parasitic organism that cannot complete its life cycle without exploiting a suitable host. If an obligate parasite cannot obtain a host, it will fail to reproduce. Examples of it are some insects like headlice. Headlice is considered obligate parasite because they die if they are removed from the human scalp. Facultative parasites. A facultative parasite is an organism that may resort to parasitic activity but does not absolutely rely on any host for completion of its life cycle. Facultative parasite has a type of parasitism which is a form of survival strategy. They can, however, develop into obligate parasites over time due to changes in its habitats and composition. Example of it is Armillaria, a parasitic fungal species that parasitizes living plants for nutrients. The fungi can survive even after its host, the tree, dies, and there the fungi can feed on the woods without the need for any parasitic activity. Accidental parasites, also known as incidental parasites, are those that attack or establish themselves in unusual hosts that they do not normally parasitize. Here, the host is referred to as an unnatural host. Example scenario of accidental ingested parasite is like eating raw or undercooked meats from infected animal. In that way, you ingest the larvae, which then develop into adult tapeworms in your intestine. Aberrant parasites. Aberrant parasite may enter aberrant host, in whom conditions are not adequate for survival, further development, or sexual maturity. Aberrant parasite infect a host to migrate to the site where it cannot live or develop further. Example of dog roundworm infecting humans. Worms can be transmitted to humans if humans unintentionally consume worms or worm's egg or larvae through dog's vomit, uninfected surfaces or food that humans touch and eat. A parasite is classified also based on duration, the temporary parasite and permanent parasites. Temporary parasite is a parasite which makes short visit to its host to obtain nourishment or other benefits. Example of temporary parasite is mosquitoes. Permanent parasite is a parasite which leads a parasitic life throughout its existence. Examples: flukes or itch mites. Life cycle of the parasites. Parasite has two types of life cycle: direct life cycle and indirect life cycle. In direct life cycle, when a parasite requires only one host to complete its development, it is called as direct, simple life cycle with one host. Nematodes, trypanosomatids, and Cryptosporidium are examples of parasites with direct life cycle. In indirect life cycle, when a parasite requires two hosts, one final host and intermediate hosts, to complete its development, it is indirect complex life cycle with more than one host. A parasite that infects many hosts in order to reproduce has an indirect life cycle. So there is a generalized stages of a parasite's life cycle. In the stage of inhuman hosts, it's called pathogenesis, where humans develop symptoms. And when the human hosts will be discharging the parasites from their infected body parts, we call it diagnostic stage. Next in the stage developing outside human hosts is called transmission, because once they are developed outside the human hosts, then it means they will have the ability to infect another human. The last stage of the parasite's life cycle is the infective stage, where they can infect another human hosts. A parasite can be transmitted to the human with this following source of infection: contaminated soil, contaminated water, raw or undercooked beef or pork. Undercooked meat doesn't kill bacteria and parasites. It lives alive that when you ingest it, the parasite will be transmitted to your body. Fully cooked meat kills bacteria because of heat, so let's avoid raw or undercooked meats. Insect vectors like mosquito is also the source of infection. Also, animals. Animals with parasites like our cats, dogs with worms, and you unintentionally touch their vomits, poops, and indirectly touch to your mouth, so we must be careful and do the hygiene if possible. Let's clean our pets. Or if we see dead animals, please avoid getting close with them. Mode of transmission of parasite can be transmitted through oral, skin, vector, direct, vertical, and laterogenic transmission. Laboratory diagnosis of parasite can be found through microscopy or macroscopy. Blood film used in diagnosis for Plasmodium. Stool used mainly to diagnose intestinal parasitic infections and helminthic infection of the biliary tract. Like example, in E. coli or Histolytica, Gardiolamblea, Ascaris lumbricoides. Immunodiagnostic methods, antigen and antibody detection methods. Intradermal skin tests or immune reaction tests. Culture methods, culturing of Acanthamoeba parasites. Animal inoculation, Toxoplasma. X-ray ultrasonography, computed tomography, CT scan, or imaging techniques. Molecular diagnosis, like through PCR, DNA probe. Treatment of parasites can be done by taking anti-parasitic drugs like we did in our grade schools. Surgery is needed if parasite has a threat serious, causing complication to the hosts like as human. Parasite prevention is proper hygiene. This prevents parasite and the most important lifestyle humans should take seriously. Proper hygiene leads us to live normally, but not experiencing uncomfortable feelings or deadly disease that gives depression to us humans. Parasites should not be taken as jokes. Health must be our priority. When parasite enters our life won't be easy. So we will not let the parasite threaten and dominate our body. So please don't forget to do hygiene. So that's for today's video. I hope you understand our lesson with Miss Angelos Campos. And I'm Aloni Kayum again. Thank you so much for watching.